Amid the salty waters of Kotrai, a king rose from the life of a fisherman. In those days, at the break of dawn along the coastal village of Kotrai, where waves gently lapped against old wooden boats, locals would often see a strong young man casting his nets, his sun-darkened face marked by a pair of strikingly sharp eyes. No one would have imagined that this man, Mac Dang Dung, born into poverty and the humble trade of fishing, would go on to write a dramatic chapter in the nation's history, rising from a riverside hut to become the emperor who founded a new dynasty. His life was the quintessential story of one who defied fate, from a palace guard to a royal martial officer, climbing the ranks to become Grand Chancellor, and ultimately usurping the Lei dynasty to ascend the throne, founding the Mac Dynasty. Within him burned a strange fusion of talent and ambition, a mix of pragmatic strength and a deep desire to bring stability to the realm. Some call him a traitor, others hail him as a savior in times of chaos. But love him or loathe him, history cannot ignore the name Mac Dang Dung, the man who rose from the bottom of society to the pinnacle of power, who bowed to foreign forces to preserve peace at home, and who gave his name to an entire royal era. From the poor river to the golden gates of the palace. That year, the village of Kotrai lay tucked beside the water's edge, where river and sea met in a brackish embrace. It was not a land of nobles or royals, but a place of worn hands, fishing nets, weathered boats, and silver tides. In that village, in the year Kui Mao, 1483, Mac Dang Dung was born into a poor fisherman's family. So poor that when the sun rose, they went to sea, and when the rain fell, they had no dry clothes to change into. From a young age, Dung Dung was familiar with the fishy scent of his trade, the sting of salt on skin, and the creak of oars battling wind and wave. Poverty did not weaken him. It forged in him a hardy frame, a piercing gaze, and hands as strong as iron clamps. While other children played in the shallows, he learned to read the wind, track schools of fish, and balance his body in a storm. Though unlettered, Mac Dang Dung quickly earned a reputation for his wit, sharpness, and agility in every task. He wasn't just strong, he observed closely, measured people's hearts, a trait that led village elders to murmur, "This boy wasn't born to cast nets forever." The 15th century in Dai Viet was a time of unrest. The Lei dynasty's court was weakening, its kings but fading silhouettes behind silk curtains, while true power shifted into the hands of generals and high officials. A new wave of ambitious men began stepping into the political void as the old order faltered and the new had yet to rise. Amidst this shift, during the reign of Lei Wei-muk, the royal court held a martial examination to recruit warriors capable of protecting the capital and restoring order. It was a rare chance for those bold enough to step from the village pond into the world of statecraft. Mac Dang Dung, the fisherman's son from the coastal backwaters, packed his belongings and traveled to the capital to compete. He had no powerful relatives, no scholarly background, but he possessed something few could rival: natural strength and an indomitable spirit. In the martial trials, he triumphed in every match, toppling larger opponents, astonishing even the examiners. He emerged as the top-ranked martial candidate, an unprecedented feat for someone outside the noble or official class. Thus, from the waters of his humble village, Mac Dang Dung stepped into the royal court, becoming a warrior in the king's imperial guard. The feet once mired in river mud now trod palace stone. The shoulders that once bore fishing nets now carried royal armor. He not only changed his own fate, but would soon alter the fate of an entire dynasty. The rise and consolidation of power of Mac Dang Dung, from military officer to Grand Chancellor. After placing first in the martial examination during the reign of King Lei Wei-muk, Mac Dang Dung was appointed as a military officer in the royal guard. Thanks to his physical strength, martial skills, and leadership abilities, he quickly earned multiple key military responsibilities. During the reign of King Lei Tung-duk, in 1509 to 1516, Mac Dang Dung gained increasing trust. He was promoted to Tai Bao and later Ta Do Dok, both high-ranking positions in the royal court, commanding the army. During this time, he proved his competence in organizing the military, building loyal forces, and expanding his influence at court. From humble beginnings, Mac Dang Dung rose to become a powerful court official, respected and feared by many in the political arena. a time of chaos and the role of restoring order. After King Lê Tung Duk was assassinated in 1516, the court descended into serious disorder. Numerous factions emerged, vying for power, while large-scale peasant uprisings and local rebellions flared across the country. Amid this chaos, Mac Dang Dung remained loyal to the Lê dynasty, specifically supporting King Lê Chiêu Tung, who had been placed on the throne. He was entrusted with commanding troops to suppress rebellions throughout the realm, including notable uprisings led by Trân Cao, Nguyen Hang Du, Nguyen Kinh, and others. Thanks to his major military victories and efforts in restoring order, Mac Dang Dung further solidified his position in the royal court. He took full control of the military and exerted wide influence over both state affairs and key territories. However, during this process of quelling unrest and consolidating power, Mac Dang Dung began to reveal his political ambitions. He gradually eliminated political rivals at court, from loyalist officials of the Lê dynasty to influential generals. Bit by bit, he took control of the court, becoming the most powerful figure in the government, even though he had not yet officially claimed the throne. Usurpation and founding of a dynasty. After years of holding military power and eliminating political rivals within the court, Mac Dang Dung became the most powerful figure under the reign of King Lê Kung Hoang, a young ruler who lacked real authority and was completely dependent on him. In 1527, after solidifying his absolute control, Mac Dang Dung forced King Lê Kung Hoang to abdicate the throne. This event marked the end of nearly 100 years of the later Lê dynasty and the beginning of a new dynasty, the Mac Dynasty. Mac Dang Dung ascended the throne, taking the era name Minh Duc and proclaiming himself Mac Thai To. His rise to the throne was seen as a large-scale political coup, but it did not involve much bloodshed, as he had already taken full control of the court beforehand. However, his usurpation was met with strong opposition, particularly from loyalists to the Lê dynasty. Many officials refused to serve under him, choosing instead to flee, mostly to Thanh Hoa, the ancestral land of the Lê family, in hopes of restoring the former dynasty. Immediately after taking the throne, Mac Dang Dung moved to strengthen the government. He appointed loyal supporters to key positions, imposed strict control over the provinces, and focused on building up military forces. He attempted to present the image of a legitimate and stable dynasty, but internal resistance and the threat of foreign intervention remained constant concerns. His accession to power led to the emergence of two rival political forces in Vietnamese history. The Mac Dynasty, known as the Northern Court, which controlled the north. The restored Lê dynasty, led by Nguyen Kim and later Trịnh Kim, known as the Southern Court, re-established in Thanh Hoa and recognizing Lê Trang Tông as emperor. From that point onward, the country entered a prolonged period of civil war, lasting nearly 60 years, as two dynasties coexisted in parallel, resulting in division and major impacts on social life. After Mac Dang Dung ascended the throne in 1527 and founded the Mac Dynasty, the new court quickly took control of the Red River Delta and established the capital in Thăng Long. However, the overthrow of the Lê dynasty and his self-proclamation as emperor sparked strong opposition, especially among Lê loyalists, particularly officials and generals from Thanh Hoa, the ancestral homeland of the Lê dynasty. Among them, the most prominent was Nguyen Kim, a devoted minister of the Lê. In 1533, he and his son-in-law, Trịnh Kim, secretly restored the Lê dynasty in the Thanh Hoa Nghệ An region, placing Lê Đi Ninh on the throne under the reign title Lê Trang Tông, thus reviving the restored Lê dynasty, Lê Trung Hung. From that moment, two opposing forces were established. The Mac dynasty, based in Thăng Long, ruling the north, known as the Northern Court, Bắc Triều. The restored Lê dynasty, centered in Thanh Hoa, referred to as the Southern Court, Nam Triều. From that point on, the Southern-Northern dynastic war officially began, lasting over 60 years, 1527 to 1592, becoming one of the longest and most complex civil wars in Vietnamese history. 1. Military situation. Both sides continuously launched attacks and counterattacks. The Mac dynasty, benefiting from its initial strength and control of the capital, organized a solid military and at times extended its reach to the Thanh Gate region. However, through persistent efforts and clever strategies by Nguyen Kim, and especially Trinh Kim, the Southern Court gradually strengthened its forces, built a solid rear base, and adopted guerrilla warfare tactics to wear down the enemy over time. By the mid-16th century, both sides were locked in fierce stalemates, and warfare spread throughout the north-central and northern regions. Battles occurred in many places, such as Taedo, Dongdo, Sonam, and Kinbuk. 2. The people's suffering. The prolonged war led to a divided country, widespread devastation, and immense suffering for the population. People were displaced, impoverished, and constantly exploited to support the war. Both sides resorted to forced labor, conscription, and plundering of civilian property to maintain their armies. The economy stagnated, agriculture declined, and society fell into chaos. Villages were burned, farmlands abandoned, and the people lived in fear and hardship for over half a century. 3. Outcome of the war. After many years of fierce fighting, in 1592, the Southern Court Army, under the leadership of Trinh Tung, son of Trinh Kim, launched an offensive and captured Thang Long, ending the Mac Dynasty's control of the capital. Mac Mo Hup, the last emperor with real power, was captured and executed. However, remnants of the Mac Dynasty continued to resist in the northeastern mountainous regions, Caobang, Langsun, for some time, with support from the Ming Dynasty. Conclusion. The Southern-Northern Dynastic War was a prolonged civil conflict that caused massive damage to the nation and its people. Although the Lê dynasty regained the capital, the consequences of this period of division left deep scars in Vietnamese history, decades of warfare, a collapsing society, and a population in disarray. This turbulent era also laid the groundwork for the later Trinh Nguyen Civil War. Assessment of merits, wrongs, and legacy of Mac Dang Dung. Mac Dang Dung is one of the most extraordinary figures in the history of feudal Vietnam. Born into a lowly background, he rose from being a fisherman to becoming an emperor, an exceptional path in a rigidly hierarchical society that highly valued noble lineage. However, his political career was accompanied by much controversy, and his legacy has been assessed from both perspectives, achievements and mistakes. Merits. Suppressing rebellions and restoring order during turmoil. During the chaotic final years of the early Lê dynasty, Mac Dang Dung emerged as a talented military officer. He played a major role in quelling large-scale uprisings, such as those led by Trân Cao and Nguyễn Hoàng Du, helping to protect the Lê court from total collapse. Reorganizing the state apparatus. After ascending the throne, he restructured the government, rewarded loyal officials, managed bureaucrats, and strengthened central authority. The Mac Dynasty in its early phase maintained a relatively stable administration. Avoiding war with the Ming Dynasty. Faced with the threat of Ming invasion, Mac Dang Dung chose to submit, offering tribute and even territory in exchange for official recognition. Though controversial, this strategic decision prevented a devastating war with the North and preserved national sovereignty in practice. Wrongs and controversies. Usurpation of the Lê throne. His overthrow of King Lê Kung Hoang and self-coronation was deemed an act of usurpation and treason. He was heavily condemned by later Lê Trinh historians and blamed as the cause of a prolonged civil war. Causing national division and prolonged conflict. The establishment of the Mac Dynasty led to the Southern-Northern Dynastic War, which lasted more than 60 years and brought great suffering to the people, severely weakening Vietnam's economic and social fabric. Ceding land and kneeling before the Ming. These actions have been harshly criticized by later generations as disgraceful to national dignity, involving loss of territory and undermining national pride. However, some modern historians consider it a pragmatic move to safeguard the nation during a vulnerable period. Legacy. The Mac Dynasty officially ruled from 1527 to 1592 and continued to exist in Caobang for several more decades under Ming protection. Although not officially recognized as legitimate, the Mac Dynasty contributed to administrative governance, education, and domestic policies, especially in promoting talented individuals and developing frontier regions. To this day, the image of Mac Dang Dung remains controversial. Some view him as a hero in a time of crisis. Others see him as a traitor and usurper. Nevertheless, it is undeniable that he was a man of great political acumen and left a profound impact on the course of 16th century Vietnamese history. Mac Dang Dung symbolizes a turbulent transitional era in Vietnam's history, when the old order collapsed and new powers emerged from the lowest ranks of society. Regardless of differing interpretations, he remains one of the most notable historical figures, with a career marked by dramatic rises, deep complexity, and a powerful personal legacy. Mac Dang Dung is one of the most controversial figures in the history of feudal Vietnam. Rising from a humble background, he ascended to the throne, a rare and remarkable path in a society that strictly valued noble lineage. With military talent, decisiveness, and political acumen, he quelled rebellions and established a new government during a period when the Lê Dynasty was in chaos and decline. However, his act of overthrowing the Lê Dynasty and founding the Mac Dynasty triggered the Southern-Northern Dynastic War, which lasted more than 60 years, dividing the country and causing immense suffering for the people. Additionally, his submission to the Ming Dynasty and cession of territory sparked ongoing debates about national dignity and sovereignty. Though regarded as a usurper and traitor in orthodox historical records, Mac Dang Dung is also acknowledged as a man of resolve, practical vision, and someone who made certain contributions to preserving national stability during a volatile era. Evaluating his legacy requires placing it within its historical context and not judging from a one-sided perspective. His life and career offer a profound historical lesson about power, loyalty, honor, and the trade-offs inherent in politics. They also reflect the shifting dynamics of Vietnamese society in the post-Early Lê period, an era in which the fate of the nation could be shaped not only by noble bloodlines, but also by those who emerged from the heart of the common people.